All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Social Justice Week 2023. I'm going to give a little spiel and then I'll let the real guy come up here and do his talk. SSU student Shelby Wade created Sonoma State's Social Justice Week and it launched in 2015. The goal is to provide a space for not only Sonoma State student body, but the community as well to contribute ideas, gain perspective, and get an understanding of current social issues. It's a two-folded mission. One, connects students with advocates who help the students develop theoretical understandings of whose land SSU sits on and the power of grassroots activism for human betterment and social change, while raising student and community awareness of and engagement with issues embedded in societal structures of inequality, colonialism, imperialism, classism, ableism, sexism, patriarchy, heterosexism, queerphobia, transphobia, xenophobia, and other religious and other discriminations. The second mission is to involve students in social justice issues and organizations which produces socially responsible students. Land acknowledgement really quickly. Long before California, Sonoma County, Sonoma State University, the land around us was inhabited by indigenous peoples collectively known as Coast Miwok and Southern Pomo. Sonoma State acknowledges in gratitude the stewardship that they led this land with, as well as what they're called now, the Great Rancheria, Federate Indians of Great Rancheria. As Professor Saris, who is the head of it, writes in his 2017 book, How a Mountain Was Made, it is said that the coyote was sitting atop Sonoma Mountain when he decided to create a world and people. But that is part of the big story of the mountain. We are all now part of the big story of the mountain, and our stewardship of its resources, including the county and our university, is an ongoing vital responsibility we recognize and we gladly accept. My name is Gianni Gonzalez. I'm your host. I am a fifth year. This is my last semester, and we're just trying to get through. But today I'm going to introduce something very special, someone very special who took time out of his busy schedule to be here with us today, Adamu Chan. I want to say thank you for coming here today and be able to talk to us. He has by the way, Caitlin, my professor, Professor Henry, and her associates will be running the technology. I believe this is going to be Zoom recorded today. So in case you guys ever want to check it out again, make sure that you get all the full gist of everything. We'll be able to do that. The speaker we have today is really special. It's quite extraordinary because of the fact being set against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. He, at San Quentin State Penitentiary, he wrote a book, What These Walls Won't Hold, and the chronicles of the organizing and relationship of people who can come together beyond the separation created by incarceration to respond to this crisis. Now I'm going to lay some ground rules down. I don't think we'll have a problem today, but just in case we do, I'm going to say it. Let's try to be respectful, everybody. I don't think we'll have a problem, but sometimes every once in a while, there's a guy who likes to be funny, likes to yell, likes to talk. You will get one warning and then you will get kicked out, okay? We're here to have an intellectual conversation, hear a different perspective on life, and it could be a good learning experience for a lot of people. So now I'm gonna give it over to Adamu, who's gonna give his presentation.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming today. I want to thank Caitlin for inviting me today. I showed this film here a few months ago in Professor Marcy Romero's class. And I had a really good experience and just wanted to bring the film back here today. I'm glad that y'all could join us. Just a little bit about myself. I was incarcerated for the last 12 and a half years. I got out about 2 years ago, so I guess not the last 12 and a half years, but prior to 2020, 12 years before that. During that time, probably like the last several years of my incarceration, started doing media work. And specifically in the medium of film and video. San Quentin has a media center. And I was able to learn those skills there, and also eventually became like leading a media project there called First Watch. And out of that, yeah, using that platform to really share the stories of people inside, and also recognizing the role that media plays in the carceral system, and that and really in the creation of culture and the way that we like understand people who are incarcerated in the communities that they come from. And really seeing the importance in us sharing our own stories from our own perspectives, that the system had ownership over truth and over the stories of people, and that was a big part in facilitating people being incarcerated, communities being incarcerated. And so yeah, like really our mission was that we had this platform. Like there's no other film crew in any prison across this nation. And so we had like a privilege and a platform, and we were trying to use that to really uplift the voices of like people all over the country, all over California. So this film specifically is something that I've been working on for the past couple of years, and as an outgrowth of a lot of the organizing that I was doing during COVID from inside. And then after I got out during COVID. And yeah, I just want y'all to watch it, and maybe we can talk a little bit about it afterwards. We're going to be premiering this film at the San Francisco International Film Festival next week. So excited about that. But also excited about this. This is a small group, but also very important. It's always important for me to show this film and to see if it, resonates with folks. So appreciate y'all, appreciate your time, and see you on the other end. Hello. So I just wanted to open it up to any questions or comments, reflections, or just silence. Just have a moment. Yeah, go ahead.
Really cool, like all you're doing, just because there really is no like voice for the people inside. And it was like, I just think it's really cool because like I have some personal connections to like people incarcerated, and I know for a fact that nobody really looks out for them unless it's like pushed onto them to protect them. So I just think it's really cool that you're like doing all these resources to help them out.
Thanks, appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things that, I wanted to communicate in the film, and something that was like really transformational for me, was just, yeah, kind of the fact that the system really breaks people down into kind of like takes them away from their communities and separates them from their families and their loved ones. But that there's a lot of power in people like bridging those connections and finding, shared purpose and commitments to each other. And that like in itself is like a resistance to the system. And, just hoping that we can all like lean into that in some way. So yeah, appreciate your comment.
What was one of the things that got you through kind of every day? Because I can imagine that over time it gets monotonous and every day is the same. What kind of got you through every day to make sure that you kept your spirit up and everything like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that misrepresentations about kind of incarcerated people's lives is that it's just like constant violence against each other, and people are like pitted against each other. And but I think that one of the things that really struck me and was about what was going on during COVID is like there were a lot of people in our community that were dying inside during that time. Like 30 people died in 2 months, like close friends of mine. And like a lot of people were getting sick, but the guards and the system, the healthcare system really wasn't taking care of people, but people were really taking care of themselves, and people were really looking out for each other, and checking up on each other and making sure people are okay. And I kind of feel like that's one of the things that people don't really recognize or understand about just people who've been characterized as like monsters, and that like folks are really taking care of each other and looking out for each other inside. And there is a lot of love there, in spite of the violence that's happening to them from, the conditions of their lives. So, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, I think what got me through and what gets a lot of people through is the relationships that we have with people who are in this struggle and in this kind of experience together. And also, being able to have this outlet and to be able to have like art specifically, and to find a purpose in that really helped me get through, every day, like really gave me something that I was like moving towards and driving myself towards every day. So I feel really privileged to have been able to do that too.
So I know that our justice system doesn't really help put those who get out of prison back on their feet. So it was something that like you did and like helped other people like to like get on their feet and like be able to like go back into normal life.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so many aspects of it, like I think, I've been a part of a lot of organizing with Caitlin too. And I think, one of the things about organizing is that, there are so many resources and so much that's put into like this system and like destroying people's lives and destroying communities. Like to counteract that, like we have to build our own kind of like systems of like care and support for people. And so there are so many people that are doing so many different things and like fulfilling so many different roles, whether it's like reentry stuff, housing, healthcare stuff, policy work, art. And so, like I'm really focused on this right now, but I also, like part of doing the filming is like I go into San Quentin every week. I'm gonna go there tomorrow to support other filmmakers. And, while I'm there, like people are asking me for like letters of support so that they can, go to the parole board or to reach out to their families. So there's like so many different levels of this. And I think one of the things about, what you do for the people that you love is that you do whatever it takes. And, that's not just one thing. It's not just like giving someone a ride home or like trying to find them a job or whatever, but it's actually like really being involved in their lives. So I don't know if there's like one answer to that question. I feel like I'm constantly being pulled in different directions and like trying to do different things. and trying to be helpful in all those ways, but also like trying to support myself too. So yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so I kind of have three questions for you. So, and they're all kind of different topics. So I'll start with the first one. Um, so like how we saw in the film, it looks like the prison culture there, or at least from your perspective, it was very like camaraderie like, very
Mhm.
community. And so I was just wondering, like, what is like the prison culture like over there? Like, was your kind of camaraderie like with Lonnie and everything kind of normal, or was it kind of rare to see like such a community base like that?
It's a really good question. Um, I think that like it's helpful to think about like what the context in which like we receive stories about incarceration is, and usually it's from an outsider's perspective. Usually it's through like media that is representing people from an outsider's perspective, right? People who don't have lived experience. Um, and of course, like there are violent situations that happen inside of prison. There are just like in any community, right? And there are interpersonal like conflicts, and those things do exist. But I think when I think about it within the landscape of like all media and like the culture and the way that we think about people inside, I wanted to represent something that's different. That's also true, right? Um, and I think that there are certain things that are overrepresented, right? Um, and so is it not true to like overrepresent this other side too, right? Um, and like to your question, I think there are different cultures within different prisons. And a lot of that has to do with the conditions that people are facing too, right? Inside of San Quentin, there is a lot more opportunity for people to engage in like activities and that can feel more liberating or free, right? But it's still a prison, right? And there's still very oppressive like aspects of it. And of course, during COVID, like that really highlighted, you know, how oppressive like this situation is. So I don't think there's like an easy way to answer your question. I mean, I think everyone has their own different perspective, and everyone has their own different experience that they've had. I know that there are a lot of people that have had like really bad experiences, and a lot of my experience inside was bad. I'm not trying to like paint a picture that it was like all good all the time and that we were like in love and just, you know, sharing all of this amazing time together. But I think that it's also important to know that people are also like in their lives, they're living their lives and having very meaningful experiences and relationships with people while they're within the context of this very oppressive situation. So yeah, I don't think that there's one truth. There's not one pure absolute truth about this. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And then my second question is how you got involved into cinematography, you know what I'm trying to say,
Mhm.
and the media, you know, so what got you into that? Was that something that was before you were incarcerated, or was that something you got into during incarceration? And how did that happen?
Yeah, so one thing I'll say about San Quentin, the prison, there's like a lot of like media recently that's coming out about it. I don't know if y'all have been paying attention to the governor did a big press conference at the prison and talked about like transforming San Quentin into this rehabilitation center based on the Norway model, blah, blah, blah. And I went to Norway last year. I visited the prisons out there. Wasn't super impressed. But San Quentin is already a place. I mean, I spent 10 years trying to get there because there are all these opportunities that aren't available in other places. And I think also that just to, I'm getting a little off track, but that situation is also complicated because San Quentin is a place where a lot of tours happen, politicians come there. And the system is able to showcase like all of these amazing things that are available for incarcerated people. However, they're not available anywhere else in the state or really anywhere else in the country, right? So it's kind of like a show prison, right? It's like a living museum in some ways. But that being said, there are a lot of opportunities to do things that I wouldn't have in other places. And so when I got there, I was able to, I think I first started out in the Journalism Guild, which is kind of like a class where they teach about, you know, how to write an article, how to like, you know, do an interview, blah, blah, blah. And I started there and kind of like worked my way up and really was like interested in video and film from before. I never had any experience with it before. And really just took to it and was really like getting in and like trying to figure out how to like work cameras and how to like work camera angles and how to do sound and I don't know, just felt natural to me. And I mean, I'm still amazed that I've like been able to like make this film. It's pretty crazy. And also like get all the support that I got. So yeah, that's kind of the story. Yes, yeah.
That's really awesome. Thank you for answering that. And my last question was, what's your like top thing that you want to see change within the justice system and within prisons?
I mean, I would say my top thing is I would want prisons to go away. That's my number one thing. I mean, I don't think that they actually do what we want them to do. I think that, you know, we have a huge problem with violence in this country, and I don't think that we're actually approaching that in the right ways. I mean, I think that it's a huge contradiction to me that like the way that we address violence in this country is to do like greater violence against people. And in some way that like we can stop cycles of violence by, you know, doing more violence to people. And like over the last 30 years, the United States has like incarcerated more people than ever, and the most like in this whole world. And it still hasn't stopped violence. Like there's still violence happening everywhere. There's still shootings happening. I think that like a lot of this reform talk is really about like getting past the conversations that we need to have and like the real kind of like substantive and like radical transformation that we need to have in this country. And I also don't feel like as human beings, like we are as emotionally advanced as we think we are, right? Like we don't actually like have the tools to really connect and like have conversation, like real conversations about like what's going on in our relationships and in our communities. So I would say that's the number one thing. I mean, I think my goal is, I don't think that I'm a person like personally that can like, or that this film is like gonna change all of that. I don't think I'm realistic about it. I think one of the goals that I have for the work that I'm trying to do is to really transform the media industry and use this film as a platform to kind of really talk about like the ways that people are represented and like more responsible ways that media makers and journalists can cover like these communities and these topics and in collaboration with those people. And also, yeah, and just like changing those practices. So that's my goal. This larger goal is like, it's gonna take all of us. It's not just me.
Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
I also have a few questions
Dude.
in no particular order. First thing, like I said, no particular order. All the shots in this were like really beautiful, like the ocean and like the plants at your best friend's house, like those really stuck out to me. So I guess just really quickly, like what camera did you use? Or
So,
multiple?
yeah, we've used multiple cameras. I mean, you're a filmmaker too?
I do film photography,
Okay, yeah,
but nothing in the realm of yeah,
Yeah.
cinematography.
okay. Right on, right on. Appreciate that. Yeah, give it up.
Where's money hat?
Right now I'm wearing the hat of film nerd.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I use, I'm kind of like in the Sony ecosystem, so I use mostly Sony cameras. For like some of the more like produced shoots that we did, we use some more expensive cameras like like Sony FX9 and FS7. But most of the stuff that I use for like the verite kind of shooting, the stuff that's like shot from my perspective was just a DSLR, like Sony A7.
Right, that like handheld stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I just think there's a lot of stuff that you can do with like kind of mid-range cameras nowadays. Like they're really good, like the stabilization and like shooting 4K and all that stuff. So anyone who wants to do a film, I say it can be done. You don't need like a huge, expensive production. I really feel like it's really like how you tell the story, and those aspects are what connects with people. And like creating your own, visual language is, you don't need like expensive ass stuff. And sometimes I feel like also too, we've been kind of really accustomed to, I don't know, like things that are like really overproduced kind of take the intimacy out of it, right? Like you watch something that's like a commercial production of something and it just doesn't really feel like, I don't know, it feels like robotic or something.
It feels
doesn't-
fake.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about something that's, yeah, like you really feel like you're like inside of the person's like seeing what they see or whatever. So
Well, I think that really added to, because what I was gonna say next is I really liked the contrast between all these like dark anxiety moments, but also immediately like the scene after having like a really happy, like someone's getting out, like your friend is getting out, everyone's hugging and crying tears of joy. Like that, I feel like the rawness that you got with those cameras really helped with that too.
thank you, appreciate that.
It was very beautiful.
Also, like I feel like drones and like slow-mo is like used too much in filmmaking now, which also just kind of too much. It's used too much.
I guess also I wanted to ask, what are your like future plans for filmmaking or media? Like what do you have going on?
I don't know, man. I'm just going day by day.
Well, what
I
do you
mean,
want?
I kind of talked about, some of like the stuff that I want to do in the media space, and I think people are listening. I've been doing some programming with the International Documentary Association and joining different fellowships and kind of really trying to move beyond just this film, but also like talk about how filmmakers can just be more responsible and more accountable in their practice. Like this is not just about like producing pieces of art. It's also like, it's political and it's about people's lives, and really pushes, like people's like worldviews and like creates, and we're creating culture, right, around issues and around people. So that's kind of my future plans. I mean, I would like to make more films. It's just making films is really hard. It's very, very, it's difficult. And so I don't know what that's going to look like.
That's a good lead into my next question, which was about what was like the timeline of this? Like, did you start this soon after you got out, or was it even when you're in there? Like, how did that go on?
Yeah, I mean, like some of the stuff that I filmed while I was inside. So I guess I could say that I did start it while I was inside, but the main part of it was like right after I got out. I got a grant from Working Films like about 3 or 4 months after I got out, and that just kind of like set this thing in motion. and was just like really a crash course in like how to make like a longer film and how to like, work with a team and, manage a team, manage a project. My producer was someone who graduated from the journalism school at UC Berkeley. And I feel like, it was all the stuff that he didn't learn in school. So I also feel like, if you're considering film school, there's nothing that actually like replaces like, actually doing it and being in it, which is one of my critiques about formal education anyways, is that it's kind of, if it's not connected to like real life or real experiences, then there's always going to be a disconnect.
Well, thank you. Also,
Thank
good
you.
good luck at the film festival.
Appreciate it.
Talking to a microphone before.
I really liked the scenes that you had where it was just like, in my mind, it was like guys walking to work or guys walking to school. Like it was very free, and it's definitely not anything we see on the outside. And so I understand what you're talking about, what media is actually representing. I also like that there was never a man physically behind bars in a cell in your film. And like, how do we get that out? How do we get people to see that? Because we are forced to see the how they want us to think that there's monsters behind bars, and many of us don't believe that, but the general population definitely does. So how do we just, I mean, I know you're doing it now, but the first watch group, like, are any of those things shown to people? Like, how do we get to see those films that those incarcerated people are making?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because, the people who control these platforms are in some ways like the people that we're fighting against, right? I think that, corporate media is really invested in sensationalism, right? And like getting clicks and getting views. And I think it's really hard to fight against what people have a desire. I mean, I was talking to y'all about like, there are people in our community that are like really fascinated by true crime stories. And I think that those stories are like very harmful, super harmful. And like, I think it's just really hard for people to break the patterns in which they've become accustomed to. And not just that, but I think that also like those representations also serve a purpose, right? Which is that I'm good and you're bad, and I don't have to deal with my own shit because I know that there are these bad people who create all the violence in our society who are locked away. And so I think that those things are like really hard things to break. And I think it is up to, people who are doing creative work to try to figure out how to like get through that and try to create stories that can kind of break through in some way, get through people. But it's hard work. And I also don't know, I sometimes like question whether or not it's even like gonna do what I think it's gonna do. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, good question though. Oh, also about your question about First Watch. So First Watch is now called For This Productions, and they are still doing videos inside. I think they have a YouTube page and also Instagram page. So it's out there. Yeah.
I guess the last, oh, Diana, you have a question. Well, I'll ask what was going to be my last question. Everybody has kind of gotten close to the subject of if they're going to graduate, if they're looking to volunteer or intern, are there places that you admire, either with justice filmmaking or law or probation related work or reentry related work? I know a lot of people's interests and trajectories, but I know that you're really connected and would know places you would recommend over other places for people to plug in for any of those things. So I'll ask that first, and then I'll let Diana ask the last question.
Yeah, I think it's, that's a hard question for me, because I think that, most of these kind of community organizations are always at capacity for things such as volunteer work. I mean, one organization that I really admire and like look up to and work with a lot is the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights in Oakland, also Uncommon Law. So I would say those two. As far as video stuff, are you looking for like video and film? Yeah. There's an org in San Francisco called Baycat that has like they teach video and film to young people in San Francisco, but I think it's also beyond that too. I've done some workshops there, but they also have like a young people's cohort that's like people who are still in college or have just recently graduated from college. And then like you go through their academy, and then while you're in the academy, you also produce works for like clients like the Warriors or whatever. So that's a good resource. BAVC, BAVC, Bay Area Video Coalition or Collective or something like that in San Francisco is also a good place to go. They have a lot of like workshops and do a lot of community kind of filmmaking and video stuff. So
Hey, it's the last question. I feel special. Thank you, Caitlin. First, thank you very much for being here and for coming up and sharing the word with us. And my question is, you mentioned you alluded to your feelings about the governor's plans for San Quentin. And I wondered if you wanted to say more about that, because I think about it from my perspective as a longtime person teaching criminology and criminal justice and a native San Franciscan, that so many times they say, we're going to do something with San Quentin. The property is worth so much, but people don't realize that other facilities, as you said, don't have what San Quentin has. As awful as being a prison, it has opportunities. And also one of them is something that's only geography, because people can come visit their friends and family members in ways that they can't visit Soledad or Pelican Bay or, so what are some of your reservations? I mean, you've been to Norwegian prisons, you happen to mention, so I'm just dying of curiosity if you want to expand a little bit more on that.
I mean, I think there's not, all this stuff is filled with contradictions. There's not like one way to think about it. And I think I recognize all the things that you're talking about. I mean, I think there are some amazing opportunities for incarcerated people at San Quentin. You're right. It is like one of the only prisons that has like that level of proximity to like an urban area, right? Like most prisons are like way out in the middle of nowhere. I've been to those prisons, like out in the middle of the desert, and you're like hours and hours away from your family. I think that those are significant benefits. And like, I'm also speaking as a person who's out now, right? And I know there are a lot of people inside of San Quentin that are like, yeah, let's do this. Like, this will be great for us, to like have all of these additional opportunities on top of that. But I think, it's also, and I've written about this, is just that, like, one of the things that you talk about like the prison being on this like $1 billion land or whatever, like to me, that points to the fact that San Quentin is worth that much and more to the system, right? Like that it actually exists as something that allows the system to continue on in the way that, right, and consolidate its power. That we can have this place where we can bring people and be like, look at all these amazing things that we're doing, and yet and still like people in Pelican Bay and people in Ironwood are in their cells 23 hours a day, right? And so
Living museum, that your phrase struck me when you said it's like a living museum. So,
for sure.
yeah, which is goes to the system's benefit, not the people, because I'm sure I would assume inmates were not asked by the governor's office what they thought about this potential plan.
I mean, I think there are people though that were asked, and there are people inside that were with it and supportive of it. And I think that, you know, that part of it makes it hard too, because I know that like if I was in San Quentin, I would probably be like, yeah, like I want there to be like more access here. I want there to be more programs here. But you know, like one of the things that I recognize when I went to Norway too, is just that they're going to show you what they want you to see. And it's the same with San Quentin. You go there and they're going to show you, you know, all the places that they want you to see, right? And there's like a branding that's happening. And that's the same thing with Norway. Norway, when I went there, has a prison system that functions in the same way. Like there's the same type of people that are incarcerated there. There's a lot of immigrants, non-Norwegian citizens, people struggling with mental health, people struggling with substance abuse, and, you know, people that the society has deemed like unworthy and non-normative, and, you know, that can't be a part of society. But what Norway has done is that they've done a really good job about branding their prisons as like these beautiful prisons that like, but it's still the same. Like inside, the architecture might be different, it might be more beautiful, but people are experiencing it the same ways. They're still isolated from their families, they're still stigmatized. And like this whole narrative that like there's no recidivism there is not true. Like every person that I met there has been back and forth to prison at least like 7 or 8 times. So it's a system that also doesn't work and also functions in the same way as the prison system here. And so I don't understand why we keep doing things that don't work and that are hurting us as people. And we can throw $20 million at San Quentin, but it's not going to change much. And that's where my reservations are about this.
And I really thank you for sharing them. I'll look up your writing so I learn more about that. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for the inspiration. And don't forget to fill out your evaluation forms. We can have more great folks here and compensate them and hear who you think we should learn from and admire.